Some people believe the Beta Cassius planet to have mystical healing powers. The Alcyons were believed to have destroyed the last of the Tyrellian ships, and Deanna Troi's father actually knew Steve Miller. I think he was the bass player. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and Denise Crosby, triumphantly returning from the Star Trek cruise, by the way.
Woohoo! We made it. We
Ahoy.
made it from the love boat. The love boat landed.
And my name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 10, Haven, story by Tracy Torme, and Lan Okun, teleplay by Tracy Torme, directed by Richard Compton. This was November 28th, 1987. And big thanks to Grandpa One, a.k.a. Tim Baum, for sponsoring this entire season. What is up? How are you doing? Actually, first things first, as a big Star Trek fan, Denise, I just want to ask you, just to get this whole thing started, this is the first episode of Lwaxana Troi. Can you tell us, you obviously met Majel Roddenberry. What was she like?
Oh my God. Well, she came in with a force of nature, embodying this character and, just never let up. She was just had such a presence, and I just thought it was really clever that she was cast in this role. I thought it was definitely stunt casting, but worked tremendously. I had previously met Majel completely apart from Star Trek. I was doing a play in LA, a very, very popular play called Tamara, and we were doing 8 shows a week, and in between the Sunday matinee and the Sunday evening performance, a bunch of us would go over to the Cock and Bull restaurant on Sunset Boulevard, and we'd have oysters in between shows, sort of our treat and a little boost. And Majel, every Sunday evening, would sit at the bar by herself and have oysters. And so we began to know this woman, get to know this local, who was there at the same time. And she opened up to us that she was, her husband was Gene Roddenberry. He had created Star Trek. And we went, oh, yeah, of course. And so about a year later, I get cast as Tasha Yar and, get to know her through this and reminded her of our meetings at the Cock and Bull on Sunday evenings.
That's so cool.
Wow.
I had no idea.
I know. Small little world. I'm telling you.
That's a small world. I will say that Majel has been always very sweet when I've been around her. She was very kind, very lovely, and always eager to do the work and be there. That, from what I understood, I didn't feel like a reluctancy or this was something that she was bothered by. I felt like this is what she wanted to do. She wanted to be in these scenes. She wanted to be in these episodes. Yeah. And she approached it with that kind of passion and fervor.
Yeah.
But what I noticed about this episode specifically, I was reminded of Lucille Ball. And there are comparisons to me to how Majel plays this character and Lucille Ball. This kind of, pushy, I'm going to do things my way. And I think there's also an irony in the true story of her life, also being married to Gene Roddenberry and Lucille Ball being married to Desi, who was a producer, and she was always trying to get in his acts. And so I feel a parallel to Majel trying to get in these acts. And I'm not saying that that's why it happened, but there is a similarity there when I look at it from this kind of hindsight perspective.
Right. Right. Well, and she does play it with that, screwball comedy sort of energy. She's just
so cute,
camping it up and working the sexual angle, the comedic angle, and there's never really a moment of sort of depth or straight man about it at all. It's just at high up here, the whole level of the performance, which Lucy, of course, was always at as well.
Right. So there's similarities in the performance that kind of reminds you of a Lucille Ball, and the follies and the comedy there that she brings to the table as well. But I also will say, from my perspective, I didn't know her character's backstory. Yeah. When I met her, she was the one flirting with Odo, and that's pretty much all I knew about her going into this episode. And so when I'm watching this, and I realize, oh, that's Counselor Troi's mother. And that
so that wasn't clear with
I don't know how I did not put that together. I get the last name.
I didn't realize that.
But this is the first time I'm understanding that, because they didn't make that distinction on Deep Space Nine. From what I understand, watching it, they didn't
and they don't act similarly. Say that. Like, she doesn't act like Troi at all. Right. In fact, if I remember correctly, Marina at convention several years ago once mentioned and pointed out the fact that she worked on her accent. She worked on creating this character of Deanna Troi with an accent that over enunciates a bit and sounds a little British, right? And then her mom comes along and she's just like, oh, hey, what's up, everybody? Hey, let's do crazy stuff. And she's like, what the heck? Why did I create this whole? And then she's like, and then I was stuck for 7 years with this weird accent.
except Lwaxana does comment on her accent in this episode. Says, when I hear you speak, it reminds me of your father. So what I get right there is, so even though her father's human, which I had forgotten that Deanna was half human, he must, that's how he spoke. So it kind of explains this accent in some way.
Very right. Very true.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I was surprised. It's like, so that's where it comes from. And once those things started to click, I actually I realized, this was the first appearance of Majel Roddenberry in the show, right?
As Lwaxana Troi, she played a couple characters in the original series. First of which I believe was number 1, the one that's played by Rebecca Romaine right now in Captain Pike. What's it called? Strange New Worlds. And then also Nurse Chapel, I think it was. These guys are going to skewer me if I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure it was Nurse Chapel, and Janice Rand was Grace Lee Whitney, I think. But yeah, this is the introduction of that character. And it's got to be just Gene Roddenberry saying, all right, how do we get her back into this show? And he clearly wrote a character based on his wife, because she obviously was the perfect actress to play this character. It felt like it was kind of molded around her, is what it seems like, having never met her. But actually, Denise, you met her. Was that her personality, kind of friendly and making jokes and being very comfortable with everybody?
Yes, I mean, for the most part, this was Majel on steroids a little bit. I mean, she wasn't, that kind of anti-mame-ish in everybody's stuff and everybody's face. But yeah, she was present and available and warm and, always engaging, and big personalities, very tall, so very, very present. And she certainly wasn't a wallflower by any means,
Yeah. She was a socialite too. She liked to host parties at her house, and she
Oh,
sent.
yeah.
I remember getting invitations on a regular basis for Halloween or a Christmas party that she would throw, and I was unable to make it, but I was very kind of her to invite me and to include me. So she was always trying to reach out to people and be a socialite. And like Denise was saying, I don't remember seeing her huddled in the corner, like not talking to people.
No,
She
she
was
was very
always talking.
social, very,
Yes.
very social. They were members of a country club. They would go and, have cocktails and dinners and play golf and, very, very, very much out and about.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so great. Yeah. There's so many people out there that are huge fans of hers that never got to meet her. So I know they're going to be really soaking this up. I mean, there are some people that have flatly said she is their favorite character in all of Star Trek ever.
Wow.
So,
Lwaxana?
Yeah. So clearly that kind of personality type, the Lucille Ball personality type, the Lwaxana Troi, really resonates with a lot of people. One of which is actually our associate producer, Dr. Marie Segal. And I think she'll be in the free-for-all later so she can explain why. But that was really cool. I was happy to see her so early on in this series, because as a fan and not having seen any of this stuff for like 20 years myself, I forget how early on she was introduced. I was like, wow, she was in the 10th episode. We're barely getting to know everybody else. And then we had, by the way, this was Armin Shimmerman, his actual, how he mentioned, this was his acting debut in Star Trek. Remember how he said the first thing that he did for Star Trek was to be the face in the box. And then after that, they shot The Last Outpost. So even though this was episode 10, and he appears first in episode 4, this was shot first. This was his first Star Trek role.
Oh, God, now I see it.
Right.
Oh,
and he changed his voice.
Him.
You couldn't recognize his voice either.
No, I knew it was Armin. I saw it because I just finished seeing him, so I recognized the face.
Oh,
wow, right really?
Away.
I did not.
I was like, not. Armin is the box.
He even disguised his voice in a way. Like I knew it was him, and I was still like, wow, that doesn't sound like him at all.
Yeah.
Wow. I forgot that.
Really. Yeah, it was amazing special effects for that box transformation right there. It was high end. But I thought it was funny.
Did he call it high end?
It was a high end transformation. But I did enjoy the whole jewels coming out of it, and even at the end when they said you can keep the chest, I'm like, that would be like, you want me to keep that?
Don't leave it in the bathroom, man.
Wow.
Yeah,
there were some serious jewels in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, no, I do not want to keep the chest that talks to me like that. I'm not interested.
Yeah. And you don't want to be caught talking to a chest. People get mad at that. With good reason. One other person I wanted to point out is, I believe his last name is pronounced Stroiken, Carol Stroiken, Mr. Home. He was the tall, I think, Dutch actor. Stroiken seems Dutch. And we did hear him speak once, but I always thought he was like the predecessor, Cirroc, to My Hard Do. Remember the tall, kind of wrinkly face guy that would come with Grand Nagus Sec? He always had his super tall alien manservant like this guy was. And I was like, I always wished those two guys had met each other, because they were both 7 foot tall alien characters that didn't speak, but they were just kind of like a servant or a guardian or assistant or something to somebody, royal. I don't know if you made that connection, but it was good to see him. I always liked him.
Yeah, we can set up the bout between the two of them. It would be a great match to see who's the stronger, taller servant. The thing that was funny to me about that was the whole Captain Picard carrying the bags, the kind of joke that we're trying to play with that.
Mm-hmm.
And to see him struggling with that briefcase or the suitcase, and then to see the other guy just pick it up so easily, it was a nice little moment there. It was showing that he was, concerned and wanted to show gratitude to Counselor Troi's
and
mother.
then when he found out that it was Holmes' job, he's like, "Oh, please don't let me keep you from doing your duty." Oh boy, let me get out of this. But actually, Denise, so I don't know if you met Carol. I feel like you did have one or two scenes with him. Was he just super quiet?
Yes, very, very polite, very, so striking in his appearance. I mean, I have seen him do other things over the years. I had.
Lurch. I think he played Lurch in one of the Addams Family.
What I was just going to say. Yeah. I mean, he's reminding me of Lurch. So yes, that's probably why. Yeah. But yeah, the whole thing was very colorful. That whole sequence shooting that party, they had the plates of the weirdest food and they were trying to put together and just all these colorful outfits everybody's, wearing and how about my hairdo? My God, it looks like I stuck my finger in an electrical shock.
You drove to work in a convertible that day.
Oh, totally. I mean, like very 80s. God, I should be like with the Go-Go's at the, on stage or something. I went, oh my God, it was just out there. But
in the 80s, they loved it. They're like, oh my, actually, I was going to mention this earlier, but Deanna Troi's hair in the later half of the episode was actually really good. Like, I don't notice, I'm not good with hair. Yeah. I'm the worst at that. I just put a hat on so I don't have to do anything with my hair. But like, I was like, damn, Deanna Troi's hair is fire right now when it was all up and in this long ponytail.
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah. It looked really good.
They were trying, obviously I looked at all of our party hairdos, Gates had something going on. Big,
it was wrapped around,
kind of weird roll thing going, and I look like an electrified poodle, and and I mean, we're all sort of got our fancy party hair on,
But I noticed the hair too. Yeah. I saw that. I was looking at Gates' hair because I guess you said it was rolled in the back because it was short and it looked really short. And then the next scene was really long.
But I'm noticing now, and again, this is coming back to me. There was a lot of, except for me. I mean, I had just that cut was my hair. That was the Yar haircut. But the girls were really trying to find their hair in this sequencing of shows. If you watch now, Gates has different hair each episode at this point.
Oh yeah, I didn't notice that.
And it's thicker. It's sometimes it's a wig, sometimes it's not a wig. It's like they're trying to find who they are in this period right now.
I can see that.
Yeah, when I first saw Beverly Crusher's hair when it was changed, my first thought was, whoa, did they cut her hair? Did I not notice?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I was just like, did I seriously not notice that they cut her hair this episode? But then I saw that it was just kind of like rolled up into like a cinnamon bun in the back or something like that.
Yeah, something going on there. But even when her hair's down, when she's in like the ready room, it's darker. I believe it's a wig at this point. And it's a whole thing that everybody's trying. But I remember during the series that there was hair struggles going on. Do I do that? It's like what is going on here with the hair? We can't quite lock into something, and they're trying different things.
Lock in the locks.
Yeah. I'm gonna just switch pace on the topic a little bit. There it is.
There it is. There it is.
But the storyline between Jonathan Frakes, between number one and Counselor Troi, it seems like, and they haven't given us enough backstory for the amount of front story that I see in this episode. And so I know that there's something there. They mentioned that in the pilot. There was that moment when they met each other. But they never showed them since then flirting with each other that much, or even dating, or having a romantic, in-depth conversations. You would think that they would expand on that a little bit more. It's kind of in the gray area at this point. And so when I see the jealousy that Frakes, that he has in this episode, I'm like, whoa.
You're like, well, you never did anything about it, dude. So
yeah, like,
right.
What are you mad about? You'd be mad at yourself.
Kind of.
It's not earned. It's not warranted at this point. It's we're just leaping into, a huge assumption here that, there's these deep passion and love and anxiety and beloved, but we don't see any of it. None of it has been there. Has there been an example of?
We only got a hint of it, if I remember, in the first episode when they kind of meet each other and they have this thing. But I don't think from episode 1 to episode 10 there were any other hints that I can remember. There was the introduction, and then they left it alone, and then there was Riker throwing a little tantrum in this episode.
Yeah, there were a couple of looks they've exchanged throughout the time. They've given each other looks, little light looks, nothing verbal. And the thing about it is that as a counselor who has this ability to read minds, you would think that that would exactly be the difficult conversation that she would call out. She would say, "You're avoiding talking to me about this because of this." And that's exactly how the conversation would start, because, obviously she knows what the deal is.
Right.
Can you imagine if your significant other can read your mind all the time?
Oh, God, there'd be no significant other.
Yeah, we wouldn't
be
last
such
a week.
Thing as
you wouldn't last a week.
I would have been busted so many times it wouldn't have even been funny.
Wait, you said you liked the green shirt. I do.
Right. Don't call me a jerk.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yes, you did.
Yeah. Do I look fat in this?
Nope.
Oh, God. You think she's prettier than me, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It would just never stop. Yeah,
it would never stop. It would be an endless confrontation.
But you would think that would be the joke running between the two of them. I think that what we're talking about could have been explored, and it could always be, oh, you're looking at her. Oh, what is this? Oh, this is on your mind. Oh, you want to. Whatever it is, she could always be using that against his character.
Even little subtle things, like imagine if just something happens, right, and Riker just kind of looks at Troi, and she just kind of goes, "I know, Will," or just like a little thing there where there's like that acknowledgement of that connection,
Yeah, or even in this episode, there was room for the writers to, when they were alone having this conversation, and she says, I know your number one, desire in life is to be a captain of a starship. And he says, well, there's other things. I mean, right then and there is the opening for the conversation of, I know, Will, that you have feelings. For me. And they get into it right then and there.
Talk about it.
They don't talk about it.
In this awkward space.
Yeah.
By them not talking about it, it makes it worse.
Yeah.
And by her being a counselor, that's exactly her skill set. Literally talking about it.
Well, then, and how about when Wyatt shows up on the moonscape, and the two of them are together,
barges in. I called it barging in, by the way.
Yeah. That made me really uncomfortable. Like, what's going on? Oh, well, wait a minute. I mean, she's clearly said she's felt something for somebody on this ship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like nothing is ever like said. You know,
he's like, too bad, buddy. Too bad, buddy. Kick rocks.
Yeah, and then Riker's like, well, I guess I'll show myself out. And she's like, please do, Will. Please do.
Really awkward. That just felt like this is not what should be happening right now.
Well, speaking of awkward, here's an awkward transition. We got to take a quick break, everybody. And we'll talk more about this episode on the other side. This is Tasha Yar with the regular hair. We'll be right back on the Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and Denise Crosby.
Hello.
Here they come.
Greg.
The trivioids of the week. I know everybody's been dying for these. We've got some people believe the Beta Cassius planet to have mystical healing powers. Riker enjoys watching the Harp twins. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Troy's father actually knew Steve Miller. Riker wants to be a starship captain more than anything. Deanna Troi is not what Wyatt was expecting. Mr. Zelo's thoughts became truly pornographic. Riker thought the Tyrellians were all dead. The Alcyons were were believed to have destroyed the last of the Tyrellian ships. And Mr. Hom keeps banging a gong. All right. I didn't realize that rhymed until I said it. It almost does, at least. Anyway, I did confirm, by the way, in the break that, it was Nurse Chapel, and number one was who Majel Roddenberry played. She also did the voice of the ship's computer as well. And so that's really cool that in Strange New Worlds, we have two different actors playing roles that Majel originally portrayed, which is a lot of fun and really cool. Anyway, back to where we were.
Yeah, so back to where we were. I'm going to comment on the harp playing ladies and tie it back to where we were. Riker watching the harp playing porn. I mean, the harp playing ladies. Horn section. Oh yeah, it felt a little softcore to me, and it felt like that's your own business, brother. Do what you want, but instead of sitting there doing that, man, why don't you spend that time telling? No, not the holiday.
Oh,
no, telling Troi how you feel about her. Spend some time in the real world telling this woman how you feel about her. That's what I think.
That's
why.
That would have been the perfect setup, because we don't know yet what's about to take place. So if they you'd given them a scene to connect with, then it really ramps up the energy for what's about to take place.
Like, what if she showed up at that point and she's like, Will, I just want to talk. Oh, Will, is this what you do? Like, well, you are going to marry some other guy, so what else can I do?
Well, I thought the same, again, when it opens up that way with him, I just thought, it's just that more of that lechy kind of thing we saw in Justice, when he's all like, hot and bothered and wants to go down. And, it's just like, who is this guy, when he wants to go down to the planet and, have some more, not that. Brian, I realize I need to finish my sentence there. Ryan's face. Oh, wait a minute. You're a mother. My God, what are you talking about? So yeah, it exactly. It just was that lasciviousness, that thing that we're seeing with Riker, that I don't know. I mean, yes, of course he's a healthy, sensual man, but I don't know. It's just, I think it's a missed opportunity. You're right, Cirroc, to be talking with Troi. Set this up.
You know what I liked was that I also thought was a little bit of a missed opportunity was the rose that kept changing color, right? And then after about 20 minutes of that, they moved on from the rose. And I thought that, because they had the box, which was an interesting thing. Then they had the rose, which changes colors. And then they just kind of shifted over to other stuff. And maybe it wasn't a missed opportunity, but I personally would have enjoyed a little bit more payoff for introducing. Otherwise, it was just like a little gimmick of like, check out this interesting thing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm checking it out. I want to see more of it. Where does this tie in? Because we actually saw it, and I don't know how they did that with the effects, but we saw it change from white to blue. And I did try
from blue to white.
Right.
When he walked on, it was blue, and gives it to her, and it becomes white. And do we ever see it again?
We did, like when she's walking through the hall, she's holding it, it's white, and then they have some kind of confrontation, and we actually see it change from white to blue. And it was a really cool effect. And I was wondering how they did that back in 1987. But that was kind of the end of it as far as I know. Did we see it after that?
I don't think so. You're right. It's like it's introduced and then nothing becomes of it.
It was just cool. Something I kind of stuck to.
I enjoyed the first of all, the ship, that the design of the ship that they found with the kind of glowing sphere in the middle of it. I thought that was a cool ship design. But I couldn't stop and help but think about the transparent skull, Captain Bodine. Is that what his name was?
Oh, Captain Baudet. Good knowledge. Yeah, Captain Baudet.
Yeah, I felt like it was like he would be the pilot of that ship. It did have like a transparent kind of thing to it. But I did like the design. The other thing I really liked was when Counselor Troi finally got fed up with her mom, because her mom just went over the top at that table at the conversation. And she went over and knocked that bell over.
Yeah, you were waiting for that.
Oh my God. That's when I was like, that's Marina right there. She nailed that. Mm-hmm. That's when she came out and said, I'm gonna break out a little bit of Marina on you and give you a piece of my mind. I loved that moment. I was laughing. I had to play that back.
What about when Lwaxana Troi calls out Wyatt's dad and is like, well, this guy's been imagining me naked. He's very excited about that.
What the heck? Yeah.
And then later on, when the guy says, we compromise, when Wyatt's telling Deanna Troi, we compromise, we'll still be naked. And Troy's like, okay. And he's like, and your mother and my father, but not my mom. I was like, whoa, stop. Did you just say Troy's mom and your dad, the guy that she said wants to be naked with her, they're going to be naked. And Wyatt's mom's going to be like, okay, sweetie, you could be naked with her. I'll be fully clothed. That's a good, I was like, wait, did I hear that right?
Yeah. They're swingers. We now know that they're swingers. And that, that Wyatt's dad is practicing his nakedness, in the mirror. He's wants to look hot, for Lwaxana.
Practicing being naked doesn't make you look better naked. he could practice all week. It's not going to work. I don't know. I just thought that was not the best compromise. I feel like the mom might have been like, no, we're keeping our clothes on, but both of us.
Right. How about when I liked the little aside that Data had with Mr. Holm about, the way you're drinking, you must have some sort of human quality. It was just like a little dig at, I mean, those writers like to kick back a few back then and there. So
did they?
Well, I mean, I don't know about particularly these script writers, but I mean, there definitely was a culture in the 60s with Star Trek of some serious drinking.
Big surprise there, huh?
Yeah.
I think it all makes sense.
But I don't think it would be fair to do this review without me bringing up the idea of arranged marriages. And I think that being central tenet of this script and what this episode is about in arranged marriages and arranged love when it's versus naturally developing love, I guess. Is that
Right.
Is that what the takeaway for you guys was?
I didn't really like. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I'm kind of trying to think about it.
I'm mulling it over
really
too.
The only theme, really, that we can talk about. I mean, there is some of the Prime Directive instilled in there when they're confronted with how do they, obviously this virus is on the way to Haven, and how do they interfere? So that's touched upon, but yeah, and also the theme of Wyatt's determination to, he sets it up that all he wants to do is cure. As Riker wants to lead a starship, all he wants to be is to be able to cure people. So, here is this very layered, complex way he's going to do. I mean, he's sacrificing himself for this, for not only love, for a really deep rooted manifestation of his love that is otherworldly in its conviction that he's seen this one woman his whole life, and she him via the pictures all over the ship. So with this is what an extreme connection of two souls that actually manifest each other. Can love be that much?
Sounds mythological, right? like a mythological story of two characters that just had their paths had to cross, and they had both dreamt it. Now, you use the term manifesting. Were they predicting the future, or were they manifesting it to happen?
Right.
And then it falls in line with what they established in the beginning, which is that people go there to be healed. They go to Haven to be healed. And so our initial interpretation of that is that you have to be on the surface of the planet and engage in the people's customs and rituals to be healed. But maybe the journey to go to there is what heals you, not necessarily being there. And that was part of the story for these people as they went there and found what they were looking for as far as their own healing.
Right. That is a more meaningful, symbol of healing. Haven. Yeah. And just the word haven, safe haven. And
I thought it was a beautiful love story between those two characters. I didn't buy the love between Troi and this Wyatt character. I just didn't feel like she was into him.
She was trying to convince herself to be, it seemed. Yeah.
She was trying to convince herself, but I just didn't feel it. It just didn't, it didn't connect that way. And at no point did she sell me on that it could be possible.
Right.
It almost felt like he wasn't mature enough for her. That's what I felt like. It felt like he was not mature enough for her. He seemed a lot more at a place in life where he's trying to discover who he is, and she's more of a centered kind of, I know who I am already. So that didn't make their paths kind of believable for me.
Nor did I feel it from him, that he was into her. He was trying to get there. He was like, they were telling themselves that this is what it's supposed to be. But we can't get out of this. We're going to try and make this work. Even when she said, we're going to be spending a lot of time with one another, his line is, well, yeah, I guess that's what marriage is about.
And thought about
it? Oh my God.
That's not reassuring, right?
Yeah, that's really not what I needed. Wow. Well, let's sign a contract. Right. It's like a mortgage or something. Right. I feel like I was buying a mortgage.
It's a tough one. Yeah. And as you were saying that earlier, Cirroc, it made me think he kind of gave off early season Julian Bashir vibes. Like he's just excited to be there, but he's still kind of like young and wet behind the ears and all that. But yeah, the arranged marriage thing is something I don't know much about. I know that they still happen in some cultures in our world, our own world. And so, I can't really judge on it too much. I mean, I feel like I could never do it, but I'm sure that's just because I was raised in a country where that doesn't happen.
Right.
But it does feel like those two were both pretty resigned to it. Like they didn't put up too much of a fight, and they ended up kissing towards the end, which I did not expect them to just be like, well, I guess they're not really that bad looking. And they just kind of start smooching. And then his line at the end, he's like, by the way, you were really beautiful, especially when we did this. I was like, well, that's weird. Right? Like, it was like, he's like, you were so beautiful when we did this.
I know.
Yeah.
In front of her mom.
Well, exactly. I mean, there was an interesting notion presented, and it kind of scurried over it when Riker and Troi are alone on that in that landscape. She mentioned something about the human heart, it being so small that it can't contain romantic and platonic love at the same time. Which I thought was a really kind of an interesting concept to go into, and it was sort of dropped,
It was.
Like, how do what are we able to can I love you and love him, and how much love can the human heart experience? I don't need to cancel one to have the other.
And which one is which?
Yeah.
Riker and Wyatt, between those two, which one is the romantic and which one is the platonic? Because I can't really tell at this point.
Right.
Yeah. And the fact that she's calling him beloved, and he's saying, dude, you can't call me beloved at the same time as you're marrying this guy. And she's like, hey, why not? We're, what's right. Oh, I guess humans can't hang with that. Well, kind of no. There's definitely something inappropriate.
It wasn't
there,
explained further. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe she's capable of loving more, and she could say, hey, as a Betazoid, I'm able to love more than one person, or
but then call me
just
buddy,
because
not beloved.
Yeah, or just because I'm married in my culture, that just means something else than what it means in your idea of marriage. There could be a whole explanation there, but it was left unsaid. They put it in the air and then they dropped it, and I'm like, well, what is romantic? What's platonic? What's your culture? What's the way you do it?
That's a fascinating area to discuss and look at and think about. It's provocative and all those things, and it didn't really have a payoff.
Didn't have to be. Yeah, it didn't have to be. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be what we traditionally believe in relationships and structure. And they could have gone into detail on how it works for them. And they did a little bit with the whole naked ritual of marriage and this and that. So that was unusual. But they wouldn't get into what it would mean for the two of them to be together. Does that mean they are in a traditional marriage how we see it? Or does that mean she can still be with Riker? It didn't say. But I want to say that the actress who played the woman that Wyatt was drawing in the episode,
Ariana, I think.
I believe so. Yeah. She delivered a line that I really enjoyed, and it was, "I knew you would be this brave." And the way she said it, and the way it was like, it was such a supportive thing to say to somebody who made that kind of a decision to do that. I thought, oh, those are the kind of words of encouragement, of confidence, of support that you want to hear from the person that you are with. You want them to support you in that way and say, I knew you could, do this. I knew you would be brave. I knew you would have the courage. And it's like, that means you believe in that person to that degree. And I felt like that was a great way to express how much she believes in him and how much they believe in him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was actually, apparently they did cut out part of that scene, which was afterwards. He was like, oh yeah, bravery. That's why I came on your ship. That's what it was. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Huh.
No, I'm kidding.
No, they didn't cut that. Don't believe that.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's like, that's what drove me to your ship was my bravery.
Right.
That's what it was.
Yeah, sure.
But I thought it was cool because when he got on the ship and started looking at the pictures, I was like, that's him. At first, I was like, is that really him? Or, because they had their pictures of him on the wall.
Yeah.
So
cool.
it was a nice episode. It didn't rub me the wrong way or anything. There were moments where I wished that Riker handled things differently because it seemed like he pouted a lot. And for a man who's so confident in different situations, especially, when the critical things and life or death, and it was all going to go to shit if he doesn't make a move. And he seems to be really confident and all knowing in those moments.
Yeah.
But when it comes to his own relationships, he seems very insecure and childish to some degree.
Think of what it would have been like had he been supportive, selfless in this arrangement.
Right.
Knowing that this was predestined way before he came onto the picture, a cultural, moment, something that he is not in control of. So how about we support our people instead of selfishly reacting, out of frustration or jealousy or something?
That would have
shown a different color, to his personality.
And it would have created an interesting, different potential conflict where maybe he's the supportive one and Deanna Troi is the one that's having reservations going, God, look how great Riker is about this. He sure is a better guy than this other guy I just met. But
there's not been, like we were talking about earlier, there's not been this elaborate setup of their relationship at this point. So we really don't know, what is warranted or not at this point.
Yeah, something was said to the effect of, I hope you can accept this. And, and he said, I'll try. And he walks away. And all I could think of was the music. Big man. I never want to dance again.
Yeah, a little George Michael.
Got no feeling that and love it.
We've got our home run of the day flying in right now because, of course, everybody knows it's preseason baseball. So everybody go support your local baseball teams. It's home run of the day. For me, I would say it's Majel Roddenberry for being a force of nature, like Denise said, and also whoever it was that did Deanna Troi's hair. I think that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Home run of the day?
Wow, let's see. Well, I think I gotta stick with Majel too. I think that can be a hard spot to come into. We think, oh, it's my husband's the creator, and this is seamless, but it can be a fraught situation. There's a lot riding on your performance, sometimes unfairly more so than usual, than a regular guest. People are kind of looking at you to prove yourself a little bit. And I think she handled it. And I remember just her on the set handling it like a pro, not asking for any special attention, special of anything. She was there, as a team player with all of us. And, that's that takes a real pro to do that, like she did it.
Yeah, I'm going to just add to the mix and just say Majel as well. She comes in there, and it's not easy to come in as a guest star, and also the added kind of pressure that everybody knows, who your husband is, but she handles it like a pro. She's always sweet and generous and loving. And yeah, I think she carries this episode. I really enjoyed that plant scene too when she asked her if she liked pets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she gets under your skin just enough where you're saying, oh, she's pulling it off because that's what her job is in this episode, and she pulls it off. So yeah, I would say she gets the home run.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
One big
All right.
question. Oh, before we go, what dawned on me is, here they're set up to go to this beautiful place, Haven, and they never go.
That's right.
I thought the same thing. Where's
why don't they go?
The excursion? Yeah.
Yeah, they're free of, they
saving money.
I mean, my God, they need it. Captain
Tasha especially. Tasha should have said, Captain, I need a 24 hours.
I need
a healing.
Couple months. Come back. Do a few missions. Come back for me. I'll be tan.
1 day at the spa. 2 days at the spa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was weird.
You're not going anywhere.
And because I loved the woman that was, the sort of person, the ambassador that was coming on the view screen, I thought she was. The place looked beautiful, and has its reputation precedes it, and I thought, wow, go now.
Go now. That's a Moody Blues song, I think, 1959, right? Something like that.
1959? No, not Moody Blues. 69.
It's really old. We'll have to look it up.
They weren't around in the 50s. The Moody Blues?
Maybe it's 69. We'll check.
I'm older than you, for sure.
Just by a couple months.
Not that old, no. I was listening to the Moody Blues in 1959, okay?
All right. We want to give a very special thanks to Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson-Bey, Bill Victor Arukin. Titus Moeller, Darlena Marie, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Neil Akasaka. Melissa nailed that one too a few days ago. The Akasaka is pretty good. Justine Norton Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, Mai live from Tokyo, Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Heed, Jed Thompson, Luther Haynes Jr., Dr. Courtney Lewis, Beth Ernest, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Okun. We'll be right back with that free-for-all, everybody, so stick around on the Seventh Rule. Hi there, everybody. This is the free-for-all. It's Bedlam. Look out. Big energy here. First things first, we didn't hear any non-appearance mentions in this episode, right? Mr. Zelo, but I don't think we ever see him, right? All right.
Here's a question. Do you want to start including Ian Troy, Deanna's dad?
Do we see him? We do in video, right? Then no, you're right. Boy, oh boy, thank goodness. All right. So that's the big one. We are joined here, of course, by Melissa Longo, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, live in Tokyo, Faith Howell and friends, Jason Okun, Dr. Courtney Lewis, Eve England out in Wales, and Chris McGee, the Dark Lord. He was a Sith one time. That was great. Real quick, Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
6.3.
Does anybody else have any guesses?
Gotta be higher than that.
I know. I voted
go with 7.3.
Oh, this wasn't too bad.
Guess a 7 because I haven't looked this time, so I'm gonna be bold and guess a 7.
Eve, did I hear you say this one wasn't so bad? Cirroc Lofton wins again, 6.2.
Wow.
Magic Man.
Brutal.
Wow.
Ruthless.
Still got it. Still
You
got
had
it.
a
Still
knack.
got it, even after the long cruise. So, Malissa Longo, start us off.
Yes.
How are you? What do you think of this episode?
I am great, and I liked this episode better than a 6.2. First, I have to say, Armin! That was so fun to see. And I have to give a shout out to Tasha's hair. Woo, woo.
It's called the poodle.
Yes, it's great. But for me, this episode was like a warm blanket of nostalgia. Not just because I really got the feeling that I was watching Star Trek, which is a great warm fuzzy feeling in and of itself, but it also kind of felt like a time capsule of the late 80s and very reflective of the time, and very demonstrative of how far we've come in just 36 years. I mean, in the broad scheme of things, that's not a very long time. So yeah, that was fun for me. And I have to compliment all of the actors in this episode. I think they're all wonderful. They're superb actors. Marina Sirtis, oh my gosh, her eyes are so expressive. And then if you've ever met Marina, you know her sass is not the same as Deanna Troi's person. You know, they've definitely got different personalities. And then Lwaxana Majel Roddenberry, gosh, she is a great actor too, and everyone's response to her was on point, especially Picard, who found ways to distance himself in funny ways. But and then I also liked that we got some relationship development between Troi and Riker. That was great to see as well. So yeah, overall, I liked this episode more than a 6.2.
Lots of Aquanet we're talking about in the chat here. Definitely 87 Aquanet. All right. Faith Howell is hanging out on the bridge of the Enterprise D. What's up, Faith? Do you remember the Aquanet days, and what do you think of this episode?
I was too little for the Aquanet days, though I lived through them. I was immune because I was underage. So, but yeah, I also have fond memories of this episode and really enjoyed that warm, nostalgic feeling. One thing that hit me a little different watching this time, Lwaxana always has that reputation for being the overbearing mother and getting on Picard's nerves. And I noticed this time, like, if you watch carefully when Deanna says at the beginning, like, makes it clear that she's not quite into this marriage the way, even though she's going to go through with it, her heart's not in it. Lwaxana moves behind her and her face kind of shows, maybe I need to do something. And then it almost, if you watch, it's like she turns on the overbearing to kind of give Troi or Deanna an out, because if she ruins everything with the other family, then it's not Deanna's fault. And then at the end, when Wyatt has beamed over and made it clear, like, this is over, that's not happening, she softens again. And so I never noticed that before. I thought that was very interesting, and I think speaks to the Lwaxana we see later in DS9 with Odo and that softer side that she can have.
Oh,
Good
you're
point.
On mute. Yeah.
Good observation. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That did remind me, though, that I absolutely positively heard an AD or someone on set flipping the page of a script, and I'll bring that up later. Because I listened to it like 5 times to make sure.
Drawing more pictures.
And it was definitely somebody flipping a page like of a script. Mai is live in Tokyo. What's up, Mai? What'd you think of this?
I am. thought it was way better than a 6.3, to be honest with you. The picture that I put up here, Deanna's face, it expresses so much there. And if you've ever had to be married against your will or because of what society thinks you should do, you would know exactly how that look clearly communicates that feeling. It's soul destroying. And I thought them addressing that in this episode was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I thought her acting was phenomenal. I thought Majel royalty was refreshing. Loved her. But yeah, addressing this topic was something personally for me that was incredible. So I loved it for that most of all. But I wanted to ask Denise a question, actually. I saw that in this episode, Deanna was really coming into her own as a character, and a number of the other characters were doing so. I was wondering, as you're playing your character, do you get influenced by how others are playing their character? Does that change how you do yours? I would imagine that in an ensemble cast that everybody bounces off of each other, but was there any real, as this show progressed into these episodes, did you feel more and more influence from the others? And if so, who most of all?
Wow. Again, at this, yes, everything informs everything. You're like on a factual dig. You're going, that's her reaction. That's her mother. That's her culture. So I get a deeper insight into who she is, which then will affect how my understanding of our relationship can be. So it's just fact finding and layering and lots of that is going on at this point. But still really the key component is your own writing, what's coming your way. That's still really what is defining all of us at this point. And I'm always going, like for instance, I had some reaction to at the wedding party that you're going to be naked. It was like some sort of like really bold reaction I had, which I'd forgotten completely until watching it just now and thinking, wow, that's wonder what's going on under that. Is she having some issue with that? And of course, again, remember we have the rape gangs, so everything is like this, this layered puzzle to me. She's reacting that strongly to nakedness, but then we had the naked now, and she has the rape gangs, and so where is this all kind of who is this character? So it's all little clues and little crumbs that are dropped along the way that begin to, inform.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now we've got Dr. Marie Segal floating outside in space. You have been quoted as saying, "Oh my God." That's how you know it's an Anne-Marie quote. "Oh my God, Lwaxana Troi is my favorite character." Is this true?
Ever. I love her so much, and I love that we finally get to meet her here. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say about this episode, but I will just say I give it a 10. It's one of my guilty pleasure favorite episodes. And every time we'd circle back in the TNG, like, first of all, the TNG first run and then the TNG reruns. Starting with this episode, I just love this run, and I get so happy watching it every time. So it's perfection. Yeah. So I don't know who these IMDb people are, but I put a 10 on there.
What do you love most about it?
I mean, well, okay, I'm not saying I'm into playing games, but I love how Riker starts really having to like analyze his feelings when Wyatt shows up. And it just shows so much about their relationship that's still being shown in Picard. Like, that's such a beautiful thing to see. Like, obviously, I love the Betazoid gift box. And I just love every second. But Lwaxana cracks me up so much every time. Love her.
Mm-hmm. You know who else cracks us up every time? Dr. Susan V. Gruner. How are you, Doctor? What do you think of this one?
I totally agree with Anne Marie. It's a 10. And I think the cast here it's not finally coalesced, but this episode has everything. I love the subject matter. I love the way they handled it. I thought Marina's performance was fabulous. So was Majel's. Everybody, they're just really starting to click. I love one little scene where Picard picks up her luggage, the look on his face. She said, "You can carry my luggage." And that was just so well done. So simple. He made it look like it was, really heavy. One thing that always pisses me off about movies and TV is when luggage is involved, they're freaking empty. I hate that. If you're carrying heavy luggage, you need two hands and you bend over. Anyway, I thought Patrick Stewart did a great job with that fake luggage. I give it a 10.
It was kind of like...
I also called this the big hair episode, the beginning of some of the big hair episodes. And they use the word naked like 100 times. I'm exaggerating slightly. But the big hair naked episode.
I noticed a theme there.
Yeah, it goes in conjunction. Cirroc, it was kind of like when Quark and Rom were carrying that invisible thing. Remember? And they did a great job of actually making it look like they were carrying a heavy thing. I was very impressed.
A cloaking device.
Mm-hmm. Right. You know who else always impresses us? Of course, it's Jason Okun. What's up, Jason? How are you? What do you think of this one?
Oh, everyone, I do agree, and I'm jumping on the nostalgic bandwagon. I think visually, this episode probably, along with Symbiosis, looks like quintessential 1980s. The hair, everything else, and for the cast, this was shot right after Code of Honor. It's the next episode that was shot. It was done pretty early, so I think if you look at these two, there's such a huge difference from one to the other. Maybe the cast is recovering from that shock. Having gone through that.
Look what Code of Honor did to my hair.
Yeah, you shocked your head.
That's exactly right. There's certainly a little bit of sort of this kind of warm, fuzzy feeling, especially for people who love the original series. That holodeck Planet Hell set is just straight out of the original series. It has a sort of feeling about it. It's just the way it is. This looks like Star Trek, or at least certainly is classic kind of Star Trek. And it was nice to see, and to see Majel come in. Gene tried to give her the part of number one. I think it was not very well written. It was a little stiff, and the studio didn't like it, and the network didn't like it. I think the Nurse Chapel character was okay. I think Majel really shines as Lwaxana. I think they found a character for her, and it really works very, very well. Just a lot of things are kind of certainly improved from the episode that came before, and seeing Armin was great when he came in and did that little piece, and and one thing I did notice, I don't know if anybody else did, it's the first appearance of that chair that ends up in Worf's quarters. That with those puffy little things, it appears on the Tyrrellian ship. Ray Burke sits in it and gets up and goes to the front. That's the first appearance of that chair. I guess things do get reused quite a lot. I didn't notice that before, so there you go. It really is sort of it kind of got slotted later in the airing order, but it's certainly an improvement over the previous ones. And again, it's so nostalgic, and it's just fun to sit back and watch and have a feeling like you're back in the 80s.
Great stuff. Yeah. So for those of you playing chair bingo, that may have helped you out there. I had no idea about that chair at all. However, we've got another person here, Dr. Courtney Lewis, that's also big in the Lwaxana Troi fan club, it seems. Is that correct?
That is correct. I agree with Anne Marie. I would also give it a 10, just for Lwaxana alone. But I also found this episode really poignant. For me, it was about, or the real undercurrent of this for me was her wrestling with the death and absence of her dad. So he's the one who kind of claims this Betazoid tradition as a human, and has his best friend, who's also human, brings him into this tradition, right? And this is for reasons that she's not really privy to as a child. So maybe he's worried about her being accepted as Betazoid. We just don't know. But it's a tradition that she runs away from, literally. So she puts this enormous kind of time and distance in between herself and this life that she clearly doesn't want. But then it finds her, right? And in some ways, if she rejects it, she's rejecting her dad too. And Lwaxana sees this. I have the same thing in my notes, Faith, of thinking, wow, she seems to be extra, especially at this dinner, right? So, and also she apologizes, which is not normally her MO, right? So when they're having that moment, she actually apologizes. So I really like Lwaxana, the episode, but I think I also like this kind of undercurrent of really feeling this connection between her and her dad too.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you so much.
Chris McGee, the Dark Lord, is here, the Admiral. What's up, Chris? What are your thoughts on this
Never
episode?
Never going to shake that, am I? So I enjoyed this episode. It was a great trip down memory lane for me to see it again, especially in HD. I will say that, before I started doing these free-for-alls here and listening to Denise's stories, I never would have noticed all the mentions and all the times whenever nudity or being unclothed or whatever had been brought up or shown on screen for that matter. And so once again, here we are with another episode where it's mentioned several times. It's just, I never would have noticed this stuff before I started joining this. I also I never had noticed before. Another thing was the explanation for Troi's accent, and a very brief little mention in that corridor there where, apparently she gets it from her father. And then, of course, Lwaxana's previous valet, Mr. Zelo, tried to rid her of it, and apparently unsuccessfully. So I never noticed that one before. I thought that was interesting. Couple last little things here. I thought that little sequence at the very beginning with Riker relaxing in his room, watching the holographic women playing instruments seemed a little bit out of place. I wondered whether or not maybe they had a few extra special effects, budget laying around, and they said we need a few extra seconds here on the episode. Let's do something with that. And as far as the phrase or word of the episode, there were several of them. I love that. Thank you for the drinks that Mr. Hom stated there, played by Carol Stryken, by the way, who also played the giant in Twin Peaks. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. But my favorite was, of course, Data's wonderful line, "Could you please continue the petty bickering?"
Good stuff. That made me laugh too.
Yeah, I laughed on that.
All right. Laughing's over. Eve England out in Wales is here. She keeps it serious and straight-laced. What do you think of this episode?
Yeah, I mean, taking aside some of the sort of more tropey bits to it that we've obviously seen so far in season 1, but there were quite a few things about this episode that I actually thought were really cool, and I actually got quite drawn into it. I mean, the score was exceptionally lovely, as usual. That's been the biggest thing for me just in this season 1 so far. It's just how amazing the music is. And I think with the backdrop of the kind of love story, it was particularly amazing this week. But that was not the main point. What I really, really was kind of struck with was how they used this sort of Art Nouveau visual for that Haven representative's office. And I just thought, that window that she had behind her would easily have, could be somewhere in, the Paris metro or Mexico City or somewhere. And then the way she was dressed with that sort of drapey gown, and then the hair. I thought it was just so sort of, late 19th century there. So I thought that was really beautiful how they did that. And I thought it kind of aligned really well with this sort of fantasy and mythology that they had with how amazing the planet was. I also, everyone's talking about what Lwaxana, I mean, what I did have to find myself chuckling. I just loved how she just wound up Picard the whole time.
Wind up merchant.
Yes. I was like, she is Picard's wind up merchant. And I was like, yes, I love this person. And I was like, I was going to say, I really hope she comes back and winds him up more. And sounds like she is going to come back and give him some more hell, which I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And then just really finally, I love it when they have lots of food and drinks and things in Star Trek. And I did try and pause the video when they were having that meal just to see what they had on the plate. So I don't know, Denise, if you can remember, but that big display that they had that was like a pyramid looks like it was just cut up pieces of French bread. So I don't know if you can remember what kind of crazy food they used for that buffet, which was just fascinating.
Well, I remember the enoki mushrooms that, there were big wads of weird enoki mushrooms. And I think Majel takes a big bite of them. Everybody was very cautious in trying to, we are having a banquet and a feast, and eating on camera is always dubious at best because, either it's, God knows how long it's been sitting or where it's from or what, you don't want to eat too much, but you've got to eat. So, it was really an odd array of all kinds of strange looking things to make it look like, it's Star Trek. So it was funny, but I just remember those, it just brought back such memories seeing those mushrooms.
Oh, thank you. It did look really cool.
Yeah. They're so odd.
Cirroc, any thoughts on that?
On the mushrooms? No thoughts on that. But I have thoughts on other things. My thoughts, I like the backdrop of the holodeck scene, that kind of purple and the orangey hue behind them when they were sitting on that rock. And it gave me like some kind of Gone with the Wind or something vibes. So I did like the way the set was designed. Also, I had this kind of weird thing in my head when at the end of it, when they said something to the effect of, you can keep the chest, you may use it someday. I was thinking that's a perfect opportunity for Lower Decks to reuse the chest as an evil chest in one of their episodes.
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't know if the chest has a name or not, but I think it would be a great cameo for a Lower Decks episode.
Yeah. Good call.
And that's about it.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I thought about Lower Decks too when it was the Torellians. I was like, are we going to get them back at some point? Because Lower Decks has conditioned us now to like expect them to get the deep cuts for us. Any final thoughts for us, Denise, before we go?
Well, I just want to give a little shout out to Rob Nepper, who played Wyatt. He is a terrific actor who, I went on to work with him again in a very interesting show that was an early Showtime, one of Showtime's first shows. Now, remember, we're doing this in 87 and there is no Showtime at this point. So we went on to do a show called Red Shoe Diaries with oh my God, David Duchovny. David Duchovny was the narrator. He was in the pilot and narrates basically this series, this anthology series. And Rob and I played a very, very interesting, unusual episode where I play a cop that is obsessed with him at our gym. and I decide to pull him over one night before a broken tail light, and I arrest him for having this broken tail light, and I take him to my quarters and like hold him hostage and force him to watch me like seduce him. It is out there. It is really, what's his name? Zalman King wrote and produced this and directed that particular episode. So it's very, it's not Star Trek-y, not in any means, but
it could have fit in this first season.
It's but it's kind of Naked Now on steroids.
Yeah.
Wow.
So with that, it was great working with him. We had a terrific time. I then went on to guest star on Prison Break, and he was a character on Prison Break. So, you end up kind of recircling a lot of times with actors, and that's always fun to do.
Hey,
just a little footnote.
Before we end right there, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, you did a little research on Robert Knepper, and you saw this, and you said just now in our chat that everybody raves about this scene. Is that what you? We can't hear you, but is that what you saw?
Yeah, I was telling you about this last night. I'd been reminded that I've heard this mentioned so many times, like in other podcasts reviewing this episode or just talking about TNG in general, and everybody just continues to rave about this. So I need to go on YouTube and find it. It sounds amazing.
Seen it. Which scene? This scene?
Your scene with Red Shoe Diaries.
Shoes. Oh, the Red Shoe Diaries.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
And it's even on Memory Alpha. Like
wow.
as a whole, it gets like a whole paragraph. Yeah.
And Melissa, you saw it, you said?
Mm-hmm. I've seen it. Yeah.
Wow.
It is out there, but you all did a great job. It evoked what it was supposed to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely not Star Trek, but it's edgy and.
When you were saying it, I got Kathy Bates Misery vibes.
Yeah, it's definitely along those lines. It's Zalman, he really was pushing the boundaries, in these early days and Showtime was, brave to put this kind of stuff on. It was pretty racy stuff, really,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people cycled through, as guest stars. I mean, I'm sure if we looked at the list, you'd go, oh my God, I can't even remember everyone who was in it.
I think Lena Headey was in an episode.
Really? That's
really?
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That is cool. Yeah. So now we know when Riker deletes his Harp Twins program, what he's going to replace it with.
Red Shoe Diaries.
Yeah. And real quick, the flipping of the script, I'm positive I heard it during the conference room when they were having their meeting, because I was listening to the acoustics, and that conference room acoustics weren't quite there in the first season. And suddenly I hear somebody, it was right at 19 minutes and 10 seconds. So go back and check that out. 19 minutes and 10 to 11 seconds. What is it? He says, they're in the conference room, and Picard goes up to Data and he says, "Your briefing, Mr. Data." He says, "Go back to your briefing." And he starts to talk, and you just hear someone flipping a page, like super loud and very clearly. But anyway, love that kind of stuff because it makes me feel like there's an AD there just a little too close to that overhead mic, getting whatever's in there. Anyway, or somebody.
It would have been the script supervisor.
Could have been.
Yeah, probably.
Well, thank you all very much. We got to roll out. Thank you to Melissa Longo, Faith Howell, Jason Okun, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Mai live in Tokyo, Dr. Courtney Lewis, Eve England out in Wales, Chris McGee, for myself, Cirroc, Denise, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. We'd like to thank you all, and we will catch you next time. Until then, always, there he is, always remember the 7th rule.